between organizations. The information asymmetry extends to CDS and large swap issues. It extends to government bonds. So no one actually knows the existence of most bonds. They don't know how they're traded, consolidated, and they end up being black swans because information is difficult and expensive and can be siloed.
Absolutely, I would agree with that. Even
money being traceable is totally ridiculous. Your money should be your property.
Yeah, we have a
it shouldn't be
blockchain.
traced. And
absolutely.
It should be traced. No one should tell you how you can spend your money or not.
Which is not what tracing actually is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unfortunately, we have this concept here. Tracing means people can tell us what to do. Actually, no.
I think tracing you mean by the fact that we can track that there's no inflation and hidden inflation of money. Is that what you mean by tracing?
No, I don't. I mean the legal term of tracing.
Right. The legal term. So it means that the government or
no, it doesn't
somebody
mean the
with
government.
a single node, like on the BSV chain, can just censor your transactions.
Actually, you can censor anything in Bitcoin. The thing that he likes to not look at is that there are a small number of economic players that all of which can easily stop
hope it doesn't
any
come to fist fighting in this panel.
And I will give you a little prediction that I know a little bit of insight into. In 2020, there's going to be Bitcoin seized by government. And those miners are going to help them. Why? Because only nodes, Section 5 of the white paper, matter. And nodes are miners. They validate blocks. The system's designed that way. Government, when we're talking proceeds of crime, if you look at Liberty Reserve, 42 countries interacted to take down a distributed system, wireless networks, etc., billions of dollars, hundreds of banks, 15,000 nodes taken down in a day. Bitcoin, next year, there are 3, and I'll say 3, phenol dealers in China. They know the addresses of, and they have been told by people like Tone that their money is safe.
Craig, if I might kindly suggest we stay very concise here, because all being well, tomorrow you'll be given the chance of defending yourself in a whopping duel, which is called, if I may remind me, does Bitcoin have any value or not? And Craig will be facing face-to-face, one-to-one, just like Professor Roubini will be doing so with Roger Ver after the break. He'll be taking on the strategy man, Mike Beaver. I think he's sitting over there, yes. And that's going to be really, really exciting, because Beaver Mike is just very anti-crypto, but very pro-blockchain. Okay, so you have a chance of expressing your views.
Any problem?
I would suggest we now go more as generic as possible, without going down into these petty squabbles among the cryptocurrencies. Let's put it this way: there is a fiat world and there is crypto world. How do you think cryptocurrencies, if at all they're on the table, might help bridge the gap, really, and how they could be instrumental in solving these problems? If I may ask, Brooke is ready to go. So the important thing, does crypto, could that be seen as a solution, or it's just it's something very ephemerical and very unsubstantial that just will go, and that's exactly what Professor Nouriel Roubini maintains. What is your take on this? Could that be a solution?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's no question that the technology has applications for central banks and governments as well.
Yes.
I mean, Tether I was one of the founders of Tether. Tether was my idea to put a real world asset, on the blockchain. Obviously, I've not been involved with that business since not long after its creation for liability reasons more than anything else. And unfortunately, it's not performed in the ways that I intended it to do, but it did accomplish its mission of demonstrating that there is demand for putting real-world assets on the blockchain. And in the original business plan that I presented to Sequoia and others was that this is something that central banks may want to use as a technology platform for currency issuance, as a mechanism to move money faster, more efficiently, and more securely. And so I clearly think that this technology has applications at a government level.
That's fine.
Can I comment on that?
Sorry?
Like, there might be demand for real-world assets on the blockchain, but to me that makes absolutely no sense because having real-world assets on the blockchain actually does nothing because those real-world assets could be confiscated by the government. So if the New York district attorney
So can BTC.
wins the case, they can just call the bank and collect all of the underlying dollars of Tether. So I see zero use case really for real world assets that have the ability to be confiscated of putting them on the blockchain. It just creates more inefficiency.
I agree to that. I'll give you a real example. So in China, real estate transactions are controlled by the government, buy, sell.
Like all the rest, I'm sure.
Like what?
Like all the rest of the domains.
Yeah. So imagine if you have real estate on the blockchain and you own the private key to that unit or to that allocation of real estate on the blockchain. But you having the private keys to it is meaningless because the actual real estate could be confiscated. It could be forbidden to be transferred to someone else. So in the end, when you use blockchain private keys to represent external assets, you still have that trust issue. And if you can't solve that trust issue, then it's meaningless. That's why I like Bitcoin, because Bitcoin itself is not based on anything else. It's not backed by anything else.
I would like to pass on the question to Professor Roubini because I don't think anyone is one's sober mind would think that all good and well. We're not talking about the overall microeconomic situation that the world is having now, is facing now. I'm talking about rather if I go to a bank, for example, right? Obviously, we've got accounts and banks. I've got no idea what the bank is doing with my money, being at a corporate level or at a private level. I don't know. We have accounts in a French bank account. I'm not going to name the bank, but it's one of the top 5 banks in the world. But even so, I can see no traceability. I don't know who's charging my money, what's the interest rate, what sort of charges. I mean, it's all wrapped out in a shroud of mystery, let alone the fact every time one makes a transaction, it all goes through a process, of transmitting the data one by one. And who can guarantee that throughout this journey, the data doesn't get lost or stolen, whatever? And that's a big, big challenge, I would have thought, for the financial system as we know today. Would that problem, do you think, could be potentially solved by using cryptocurrencies, or is absolute rubbish?
First of all, I'm not a defender of the traditional financial system.
Okay,
I wrote a whole book analyzing the role that the financial system had in financial crisis, excessive leverage, excessive risk-taking, not enough capital, not enough liquidity. So I'm the first critic of it. The question is, what are the solutions to it? I would say that some of the inefficiencies of the financial systems are being addressed by what I call the fintech revolution. Fintech revolution has pretty much nothing to do with crypto or blockchain. It's a combination of AI, big data, and IoT. It's revolutionizing payment systems, it's revolutionizing credit allocation, asset management, insurance, even some of the capital market activities. With Bitcoin, you can do 5 transactions per second. With Visa, you can do 25,000 transactions per second. You have things in China like Alipay or WeChat Pay that billions of people use every day for billions of transactions. In India, you have UPI systems. In Africa, you have M-Pesa. In US, you have Venmo, PayPal, and you name it. So there is a revolution in payment system, very low cost transaction. All money is digital right now. And those things are changing. They're going to lead to a competition with traditional financial institutions. There's a lot of talk within blockchain and crypto about revolutionizing financial intermediation. Cryptocurrency is a misnomer. They're not a unit of account. They're not a means of payment. They're not a stable store of value. Nobody's using this kind of stuff. And by the way, conceptually, if you think about it, a world in which everything is tokenized is a world of barter, right? Because if for every good and service I have to use a different token, I don't know what's the relative price of 2 goods. I have to be able to have a single numeraire to know the relative price of a can of Coke as opposed to a can of Pepsi. If there is a Coke coin and there is a Pepsi coin, it's chaos. It's total chaos. So people talk about tokenization, having a token for everything, is returning to Stone Age. I mean, even the Flintstones had a more sophisticated financial system than crypto. They had shell dollars, and they were using them to avoid barter, while you guys want to go back to barter. So if you know any basic monetary theory, you know that a currency has to be a numeraire, has to be a single currency. You cannot have thousands of shit coins. Has to be a stable store of value. Has to be a means of payment scalable. Has to be secure. It might be even centralized. You know, financial systems that are existing are centralized, but they're scalable and they're secure. If I lose my credit card, I call in a second, replaced it, and I get my money back. If you lose your private key or somebody steals it, your money is gone for good. There's no scalability. There's no decentralization. Everything is centralized in crypto. Miners are centralized. Exchanges are centralized. Developers are centralized. Wealth is centralized. You have a Gini coefficient in Bitcoin that is worse than North Korea.
So
and you're talking about decentralization.
Professor,
so you're talking about something
so assuming
that
everything's
doesn't
centralized.
exist. You're talking about
we don't have to
something
get all
that doesn't
angry about
exist.
decentralization.
Huh?
Sounds like you're getting all worked up for this. Let me ask you a simple question.
There is-
For your ideal
Yes, you
currency,
created
should it be
something
asset-based
It's not
or
a
debt-based?
currency, and it's totally
Professor,
centralized.
should a currency, in your opinion, be asset-based or debt-based?
And
I
what
assume
does
you
that
understand
actually
that
mean?
question. I assume
He
you
says
understand that
asset-based or
question.
debt-based.
It's a question.
Gold,
Professor.
Craig, would you mind?
Yeah. So it's a simple
answering
question.
Bob's question.
If you don't
please?
understand the question, I can explain it, but please go ahead.
To me, it's a meaningless question. Meaningless.
Wow.
I agree.
Wow.
Gold,
So hold on a
Why
second.
do you
hold on a
agree,
second.
Craig?
So
Why
in
do you
your
agree with that
life, you
argument?
differentiate between debt that you owe and assets you have. You think that's meaningless? A credit card, the amount of limit on your credit card. I assume you have a credit card. Are you white collar?
I'm not going to engage on this. Sorry, I'm not.
No, but seriously, okay, academic question. Should currency be asset-based or debt-based? In your opinion, which is better?
no, I'll do
Craig,
this.
what do you have on this? Please go ahead.
It's very simple.
You don't understand what
Gold-based currencies have
I don't understand
existed,
the concept of what?
and they all had debt.
I
This
don't understand what
concept,
money is.
You have an
Would you
asset-based
please-
currency.
Who
There's
is
no
the
debt.
authority on money?
Is crap.
Do you have a PhD on
That's
money?
A money has to
Who-
be a unit of account, has to be a numeraire, has to be a means of payment, has to be a stable store of value. Okay,
Understand.
that's the
So-
definition
He's
of
right.
money.
Okay, my
So
question
don't
is,
tell
should it
me
be
about
asset-based or debt-based?
How many
In
people
my opinion, money
can
is
buy their
asset-based.
home without a home loan?
You would have to be expecting something of the sort from
How
this
many
panel,
people
really.
buy their car without going into debt?
This is probably the
How
coolest
many
panel
people
I've ever seen in
get
crypto.
a lease?
It's almost like a duel.
Look, but
When you have gold-based currencies, like we had in the past,